Now, welcome back again for activity-based costing. So, activity-based costing. Good. Activity-based costing. Wow. Activity-based costing. So, these are the advanced cost accounting techniques. They oppose what? The traditional cost accounting techniques. I'll make the notes available and it'll be fine. Good. Now, when we mention activity-based costing, it opposes the traditional absorption costing. As we did the marginal and absorption costing, and we said that with the absorption costing, we absorb all the overhead using what? One overhead recovery rate or what? Or overhead absorption rate. Good. So under the absorption, we calculate just one or maximum of two. The overhead absorption rate. That's what we use. So for those of you that were there, whilst we are treating the marginal and absorption costing, you are familiar with this. Good. So under the absorption costing, we use just one rate to absorb all the overheads. How we get it at the department. Now, activity-based is saying no, don't do that. Don't just use just one rate to absorb all the overheads. What do? Use the activity-based rather. Use the time or the activity or the work that you perform. Cost it according to the work. Don't average it. So the overhead absorption rate was average method. It was what? Average. It's like you're supposed to take your time and then select them one after the other and just turn them. But you just look at them, put all of them together, and then do all at a go. It's like when you are washing leaves. If I give you 30 leaves, 30 dirty leaves, and ask you to wash it for me, one after the other, if I turn and go, you will try to use the overhead absorption rate by putting all of them in a bowl, put the water on it, and just shake it. Then within some few minutes, averagely, you are done, right? Meanwhile, I was expecting you to be turning the leaf one after the other. So leaf one, you turn it upside down, wash back, wash front, put it here in that order. That is what the difference between the absorption, traditional absorption cost system. So traditional absorption cost system. So the traditional, everything is put together. We just place them in one single bowl and then we find the average. But with the activity-based costing, with that, what do? We do them individually, activity by activity. Like I said, you take your time and then they leave it individually, one after the other, so that you can get 30 leaves. So that's the basic difference. So the activity-based costing is the advanced cost accounting technique which oppose what the traditional absorption costing. And then the throughput that we just finished is also opposed to what the traditional system. Which of them? Marginal. So the advanced, there are two advanced and there are two what traditional. All of them, they are one. So if you talk about throughput that we are done, it opposes what marginal costing. And then the advanced, that's the ABC, also opposes what absorption. So if you know margin absorption, then ABC and throughput is the advanced form of it. Is the ADAP. So that's why we took our time and then we're going through what margin absorption. If not satisfy yourself with these two, then kindly watch the video to satisfy yourself fully. If not, then get a note on them and then you'll be fine. so that when we do this, you'll be fine. Now, your examiner will not examine you on this, the traditional one, but you're going to examine you on this too. So the advanced one. Yeah. So now let's start. Now, activity-based costing. This is a cost technique where the overhead costs are being absorbed by what? An activity base or based on the activity level of the organization. So based on what? The activity level. The number of works that you do, that should determine the overhead cost, not the unit that you produce, how we get it. Sometimes you can produce more, but you did less work. Like I said, wash 30 leaves for me. 30 leaves, you just put them in a bowl, put water on it, and just shake the bowl, you are done. You've done that. If I ask you to wash 50, the same thing you do, right? Meanwhile, if you're supposed to turn them one after the other, you will do much work than what the putting all of them in a bowl. So that is it. So with activity base, we are interested in what? The work that we are going to perform, but not what? The average, the unit that we are going to produce. The absorption is interested in the units, but the activity base is interested in what? The activity level. How we get it? Good. Now it gives a fair base of what? Sharing overhead cost. Fair base. The absorption gives an average base. So now there are stages or steps in the activity based costing. But before I do that, I will give you a scenario on how activity based costing work or how activity system works. So give me an organization and give me any of their overhead costs. So give me any of the overhead costs that we've done. Any overhead cost. Example of overhead. Example of overhead. Yes, example. Mm-hmm. And another one again. Mm-hmm. And another one again. Mm-hmm. And another one again. Mm-hmm. Let's say machine running cost. Okay, now when you talk about machine running cost, for instance, so when I pick machine running cost, give me another activity. You mentioned lighting and heating, right? So lighting and heating. Mm-hmm. Repairs, repairs of what? Building, building running cost, Okay, so building running cost. I'll take that. Now, you realize that this machine running cost is a very big expenditure or big one. Heat and lighting is very big. We have individual costs that you incur within them, right? So like machine, fuel, right? It's a machine running cost. So all repairs, right? Repairs to machines. What again? Parts. You buy parts. What again? Insurance. I like that. So insurance. Insurance part too. Have you seen? What again? Machine running cost or machine. If you talk about lighting and heating, electricity, bulbs, switch, cables, right? All of these are lighting and what heating cost. Good. Now, have you seen what we've mentioned? Now, the traditional cost system don't care about any of this. We put everything together. So here with ABC, we are going to look for the individual issues. Now let's look for the steps in activity-based costing. If you want to calculate the steps, or if you want to calculate the overheads or the total cost of the product and want to use the activity base, you have to go through some steps. There are 6 in number. So let's see them. In fact, basically there are 5. We have extended the last one, the 5th one, to 2, so that we can have the 6th. Now let's see. Okay. Now step 1. So steps in activity-based costing. So today we will look at the steps and then we will continue. That's next Tuesday. So step 1, identify the major activity. Identify what? Yes, the major activity. So that's the step 1. In fact, I've summarized this into a simplest version. If you want the full version, then visit the notes and then the manuals. You can get a full version from it. But we need a summary here. So identify. So step 1, identify the limiting. I said limiting factor. Identify the major activity. The major activity. That's the first step. So when I say the machine running costs, some of the expenditure group them to big. Now, if you take the organization's overheads, it form about 75% of the cost of every organization, because the overhead costs are more. Good. Now you group them. Some are major. So for instance, repairs to machine, we can group it under what? Machine running cost. So you add it to machine running cost. So like cables, can add it to what? Can add it to the lighting. Good. What about wages and salaries? Admin, I like that. Factory wise, I like that. I like that. I like that. In fact, it can stand on its own, or you can add it to the welfare staff cost or the welfare cost, and then you are done. Good. So that's the step 1. Identify the major. It means that some of the costs are not major. You can't let them be on their own. They are too little. So add it to 8 components so that you can get full picture. Then the step 2, identify the cost driver. Cost what? Driver, not the cost mates. It's only an activity-based costing that we have a cost driver, but no mates. Good. So step 2, cost driver. Identify the cost driver or the driven force of the cost. What result this cost? What result the major activity? What normally brings the major activity? That's the next one we have to identify. So identify the cost driver. So for machine running costs, what will be the cost driver? Something that will result more of machine running costs. So that's the basis. The cost drivers are normally the basis. So what under the absorption, overhead absorption rates, the basis that we talk about over here is the drivers. So if you talk about machine running costs, then to be what? Machine hours. If we talk about, let's say, let's say, labor cost or indirect labor, the labor cost, then you're going to use what? Labor or hours. So that is the basis, or that's the driver. We call it what? Cost driver. The one that resolves the cost, or the one that will bring the cost, the one that drives, the one that brings or resolves the cost, moves the cost. The one that when you do it more, it will give you what? More cost. That is it. That's the second stage. Then step 3, calculate the cost pool. Step 3, calculate what? The cost pool. So step 3, calculate the cost pool. Cost what? Pool. For calculate. Calculate the cost pool. Now, right from the cost pool, we said that the activities must be grouped into what? Group and the major ones, right? At each major activity, there are sub ones, right? Sum all the costs together. Let me give you an example. We said machine running cost, right? So machine running cost, I can have repairs, maybe 100 Ghana. I can have fuel, let's say 200. I can have what? Oil or lubricant. That one's, let's say, 300. I can have what? Repairs. Okay, repairs is here. Okay, that's all. Then let's put them together. So 300, 100, and what? 200, making what? 600. So the total cost pool is what? 600. So the total running cost, machine running cost is what? 600. That's the cost pool. How we get it? Yes, so that's how you get the cost pool. Now, the good news is that from step 1 up to step 3, there's not give it to you in a question. Step 1 to step 3. So you only step 4 and step 5. Just that to identify the cost driver, you know that it has not been easy. The base of apportionment from overhead absorption, how we select the basis, it has not been easy. Yes. So the same thing will happen here too. So take note. Now step 4. Calculate the cost driver rate. Cost driver what? Rate. Cost driver rate. That's the step 4. Calculate the cost driver rate. So calculate cost driver rate. Now the cost driver rate is equal to the total cost pool. So total cost divided by what? The number of drivers. The number of what? Drivers. So total number of drivers. So the drivers. So the total number of machines. So let's assume that the machine hours to 100 and the cost pool is 600. So therefore, the 600 is divided by what? 100 machine hours. So therefore, each machine hour is what? 6 Ghana cedi per what? Machine hour. Then we are done nicely like that. So that is how we are going to calculate. And that's where you started from. You start from where? Step 4. You start from step 4. Just that there's sometimes the drivers, they might not give you the total. So they will require you moving from there. And then you'll be fine. Okay. Now let's continue the game. Let's continue the game. We will finish the steps tonight. Now step 5. Step 5. Step 5. Step 5. Step 5. Calculate the total overhead absorption rate for each product. Calculate what? Total overhead absorption rate for each product. I normally call it totality. So step 5, the nickname is called totality. Total overhead cost or overhead rate. Total overhead cost or overhead rate for each product, for each major activity. So for each major activity, calculate the total overhead cost. I call it what? Totality. Then you can go in for the 6th one, that's the overhead recovery rate per unit. We call it the overhead recovery rate per unit. That's a per unit approach. So the total, this is the total for all the products, and then the per unit version is the 6th one. So the overhead cost per unit or overhead recovery rate per unit. Overhead recovery. Overhead what? Recovery rate per unit, and then you are done. Good. So these steps is the one that we are going to use to work the activity-based costing out. They are not difficult at all. So you'll be fine. So in fact, they are not difficult. Throughput is a bit, but all of them are the same level because all of them are advanced cost accounting techniques. So once they're advanced, they are not like margin and absorption cost. I wish now margin and absorption costing was a bit straightforward. Uh-huh. Because now we are building. Now 50 years ahead of us, or 100 years, 150 years ahead of us, I'm very sure that they are going to also bring something advanced more than the throughput and then the EBC in that order. Uh-huh. So that is fine. So the next generation, next ahead of us, they also learn those ones as a history for them. Good. So that is it. Now these steps, by next Tuesday, everybody have to get it from me, and then you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. So we will probably end at the steps, and then next week we will continue the activity-based costing. Yes, please and please again, kindly try the homework for me, my questions, and then you'll be fine. And then